The first time in the history of, I would say, fitness, you're going to have strength clients aging from 30 to 40 to 50 to 60. We allow the overachievers to be the overachievers, but our system is built on making that 60% in the middle profitable. So we reverse engineer everything for that 60. I hate this idea that some companies that are much bigger and smarter than us are saying that there's this turnkey model that you can put anybody in there and it just works. No offense, this isn't Subway. We're actually in the hospitality business. We just happen to be doing fitness.
Hello and welcome to this week's Gym World Worldwide. I am your host, John Franklin. Join with me today is the captain, big sandbar guy, Mateo Lopez. And we have a special guest with us, none other than the co-founder. You're also the CEO, right, of MADabolic. And I want to ask you, Brandon, where do babies come from?
Where do babies come from? I mean, you're starting off strong, right? Because are we going to talk about politics, religion, all at one component? I don't know.
Yeah, isn't that what your TEDx was about?
Yeah,
isn't that where babies come from?
Kinda, yeah. Well, I came from Canada.
With rugged good looks like that, you should know where babies come from, man.
Yeah, I always tell everybody it's a funny story. I am Canadian, obviously, so I grew up with a very inclusive Canadian upbringing, and now I'm an American small business owner, so I'm like the biggest oxymoron on planet Earth. So I guess we'll just start there.
I understand how that feels.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is babies come from the VersaClimber. That's what you're saying.
He's saying it's a complicated topic. You know, it depends is what he's saying. So tell us, Brandon, what is MADabolic for the people who may have not heard? What do you guys do?
Yes, we very much play in the pop culture boutique fitness sandbox, and I don't mind admitting to that. Right, that's where we hang out. I think what we represent in this world is we offer just a unique look because we're very strength biased, I think is the big difference. And I'm not necessarily saying one's better than the other, but if you talk about our angle and the people we seem to do very well with are people that value a more structured training floor. They like one-on-one attention to detail from a coaching component, and they value strength. So I think that's our angle right now. And it's neat, right? Because today strength is cool. It's hip, it's trending, it's on the tip of everyone's tongue. And that's all we've been doing for, a decade plus, just refining and retweaking a strength bias program for everyday people kind of past their sport, just looking to age strong. So that's kind of our angle.
But there's a lot going on. There's sprinting, there's climbers, there's ergs, there's other ergs, there's boxing, there's dumbbells. It's a lot in there, packed in.
Yeah, it is, but we do 5 movements a day. So it's not like 27, it's not 18. We focus on 5 movements. And when we start building out anything from a single day to a microcycle to a calendar year, we're always going to prioritize those strength bias movements and then sprinkle in the athleticism, the cardio to complement that. So in the shortest term, if we're looking to build lower body power, we're squatting, we're deadlifting, we're swinging. And then whatever brings that together from those complementary movements, we bring them after the fact once we have hit the main drivers of the day. And out of those 5 movements, usually 3 of them are weighted. And then you have a boxing component and then call it athleticism, which could be foot speed, jumping and landing, boxing, cardio machines, but we're always leading with strength.
And I mistitled you at the beginning of the podcast. So there are 2 co-founders, right?
There are, yeah.
You and Kirk
DeWall.
Yeah. And so you are the chief concept officer and he is the chief training officer. Is there no CEO? Like how does this work?
So when we were a young concept, I wore that title of CEO. And the truth is when we decided to really go to scale, we knew that at some point there would probably have to be a true CEO that we bring on at some point. And my partners, Z Growth Partners is the private equity arm of the business that we kind of created a new partnership in 2019. And that's when we decided to, the two of us, the two co-founders, me and Kirk, we were the only people running the entire franchise on top of owning multiple corporate stores. And we made a decision to, we thought we could either probably do 20 to 30 units ourselves, or we could partner with the right operational team with the right background in franchising to actually do something bigger. And at that point, my partners were like, what do you think of the title Chief Concept Officer? I'm like, fuck, sounds cool. Let's do it. So that's about how much weight I put into my own title. What it means to me is I'm kind of like the only generalist on the team anymore. We have a big team and I've done all the roles. Can't say I did them as well as our team does them now, but at least I can play devil's advocate. I can support them. My whole week is making sure that all our departments feel supported. And I like it, right? I like the startup phase. I like problems to solve. I like staying busy. So I think the title suits me.
I think Elon Musk said that CEO is a made up title. And I agree with everything he says. And so there you go. We're aligned. There it is. You don't need the title anymore. It's gone.
I'm okay with that. Yeah. So.
And I listened to, so we were introduced by Stu Brower. I know you guys are close to each other, actually, like physically in location. It seems like you guys talk a decent bit. One thing that I've noticed you two nerd out a lot on, and one of the things I noticed in an a LinkedIn post you made recently is sounds like you think a lot about branding. So you posted this thing, you said branding first, marketing second. I don't even know what that means. Can you explain like how you think about branding and why it's more important than marketing?
And also, are you guys dating?
Yeah.
Me and Stu, we're going out for whiskey and cigars tomorrow night. So we're going on a little date. So yeah. But branding and marketing, I guess, I mean, I could be wrong here, right? I mean, maybe some CEO has a better example of this, but I've always thought that you should have a brand in place before you consider marketing. And it's funny that we're talking about this now because I just got off the phone with one of my business partners, Rick Del Santro, and he's with the private equity arm Z Growth. And we're right now where we sit, we're talking about where to put our advertising dollars. And one of the things that's important from a system, right, is fran dev, so franchise leads. But then there's also brand awareness. And there's this like argument of like, where do you put the money? Brand awareness campaigns or just lead generation? I'm a big believer in brand awareness leads to lead generation, but I don't think lead generation leads to brand awareness. So we try to make more noise from a brand awareness side of things. And I would consider that branding. There's a great quote. What is it? Is marketing is to get someone out on a date and branding is why they say yes or something like that. Some smart person said that, but I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm a huge believer in building a brand, and that will lead to everything you want to do from a marketing side of things.
Well, if you talk to someone with like a smooth brain like me, when you like build a brand, I think of like some colors, a logo, like basically a brand guideline. And there's obviously a lot more to it than that. Like if you're just like a random single location brick and mortar gym owner that doesn't have aspirations of 50 franchise locations, like what are you thinking about? What are the questions you need to ask before you start hitting that buy button on the algorithm?
Yeah, well, I think at that local level, that single unit deal, you still got to build a hyper local brand. It might look a little bit different, right? Because that's a lot of strategic local relationships, whether it's ambassadorships or partner gyms or complementary fitness products you might work with. It's just being a good human being in your community too. And that's still applied at the franchisee level. Like we still teach those elements of being hyper local. It's almost like a business within a business. But at this level, to get into the right publications, to have, and I'm a big believer too, like I do want the client base to love us, obviously, but to be able to have the respect of fitness professionals talking about you. I think that's what we are trying to do right now. So when you go to a big conference like IRSA, if an Athletech News is writing about emerging concepts, if Fit Insider is writing about emerging concepts, yes, it'll eventually reach the client base, but to have the respect of the people that really watch the industry is a big component of branding, I think, as well.
I have a question. How, and I didn't get to ask Evan this the other day. So how much of like the budget for the location is like, okay, I need to do this amount of like advertising, but HQ is going to take care of the branding, or like, how does that work? How much collateral are you giving them? How much are they relying on you? And then how much do they have to go out and find their own leads?
Branding, we can help a lot of that. Obviously, we have strategic marketing partners, whether it is just traditional advertising, but the easiest way to say it is a franchisee could copy and paste their way to a very intelligent branding campaign on their Instagram accounts, on their social channels. We spent a few years looking at every negative review we've ever had and came up with an intelligent blog post and a reason why we do things a certain way, so that at that local level, if a franchisee was ever to get a negative review, not only would there be a kind and intelligent response, there may be a blog that they can link to that explains to them why we do things. Like one of the biggest things people like to talk about is our on-time policy. You know, I know we were joking about it early that once our classes start, we lock the doors. And in this industry, a lot of people think that is, they can't believe we can pull it off. But I can tell you, like a high-performing client, which we typically seem to align with, they love that. There's more positive reviews about that. And I always explain to people, if you have 20 to 25 people in your class, and many of them are high performers that have to be somewhere after that class, the only way I can get them to where they have to be is by starting on time. And they seem to love that. But, you know, to circle back, our creative director, her name is Finley Funston, been a partner of ours for a while. She actually was our GM at our corporate stores that we brought her over to the franchise side of the team. And we sold our corporate stores to her and her husband, Landon, that will continue to grow the Charlotte portfolio. But just so happens she had a content marketing degree. So she is the person that provides our franchisees with all the branding you would ever need. So she has the copy. We have the videographer that brings the collateral to the copy. And then she will also oversee any marketing team we will use at that local level. So she'll consult with them. She'll provide imagery, content to help that franchisee invest those dollars the most intelligent way we can help.
That's cool.
That's rad.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right, here we go. So I actually went and pulled up the review. So I'm assuming this is where most of your, this is the most controversial thing, is what you're talking about. It would be awesome if they told you on the ClassPass app that they lock the doors. So if you are 1 minute late, you can't get in. And so you're saying you basically said these are issues you may have as a franchisee and have scripted out like these reviews in order to help them respond and portray the brand in the most positive light. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and we had a wild thing go viral in Austin a couple weeks ago that I haven't looked at the most recent data, but it was a negative review like this about someone showing up late. I think it was ClassPass. And by the way, the collateral is on ClassPass. And we also reach out via text explaining the on-time policy. We email, we call. So people do know that this is happening. Well, this crazy review, because not to get into what was sent via DM to us and how rude some of the commentary was, our owner did decide to put this client in their place. And essentially, it was a long response that ended with, and don't worry, we'll tell the pilots to hold the plane the next time you are late for your flight, which, didn't go over well and went over very well based on our base. And I think as of today, there's probably 5,000 comments, 70,000 likes. Like it's pretty crazy. Now, could it have been done more delicately? Sure. But you know what? Like my job as the franchisor is to support the franchisee. And I actually do agree with the baseline policy and the way he approached it. And, you mentioned Stu Brower earlier. And one of the things he always talks about from a brand is you want 51% of people to really love you. And you actually do want 49% of people to not like you. And it's tough striking that balance. And I don't want to come off as a prick, but here's the way I see it. The fitness industry has a lot of very inclusive offerings. There's a lot of high fives and everybody is welcome and all that stuff. And this is fantastic. It's great for a certain amount of people. But that shotgun approach, you have to make a lot of people happy and you have to listen to a lot of voices. And we've just chose to kind of really isolate that 25 to 45-year-old high performer. And we try to cater everything we do to them, just because no one's really celebrating them and really specifically talking to them. And I think that's one of the things that's helped us stand out.
I mean, I think it is genius, I think. And I do think you're right to say, hey, yeah, this isn't for everyone in the sense that you don't want to get bad reviews like typically, but I think in this particular instance, it makes you noteworthy. It's a unique thing about your brand. And it's cool for a lot of people, and it's cool for enough where, you've been able to not build your business off of just this thing, but it's just part of that unique differentiator that draws this certain avatar that you're looking for and a certain approach to training. And in a lot of ways, there's no such thing as bad press. Like all these people are going off in the comments about it. I think it's pretty smart.
And by the way, too, let me defend my owner, John Gita, who is one of my favorite human beings within our system. He's like, this man is a kind human being. I think he has a 5 out of 5 Google review, a 4.9 Yelp review. And he's got one of the best teams in the system. Like, they're good people. This was just an isolated case. Like, here's the other thing too, guys, is our NPS score is 91 across our entire system. That is unheard of. I mean, I get we're not for everybody, but we're for a lot of people. It's just we're in those days, right? There's a lot of keyboard warriors, and sometimes I guess you have to put them in their place. I don't know. Maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe you don't too, but I'm also okay with what John did and completely support him.
Well, ClassPass is kind of dancing with the devil, right? Those people with ClassPass are by nature hoppers. They have a high bar, but they want a low price. They're basically the worst of every world, which is why we stopped doing it as quickly as it could.
Immediately.
It didn't work. It worked. It got bodies in the door, but it just made it difficult. But I understand one of the great things about this concept is you can get. You got a lot of space, you can get bodies in, and it's not as complicated as say a CrossFit class where you have someone from ClassPass walk in and you're doing snatches that day and they've never held a barbell before. That may
that's tough.
That may be tough. But I do want to talk about what you said because I did think it was smart. Where you're not trying to be for everybody. And I think this was a mistake that CrossFit made, where they just kept getting wider and wider and wider and wider. And that's naturally what happens when you have 15,000 locations. You need to grow the TAM. But in reality, it makes the positioning weaker and weaker and weaker, where you have to talk to everybody. If you think of like that OG crop of CrossFitters, it's like, oh, it changed my life. The cult of CrossFit.
Sure.
It looked a little more like this. It looked a little more
I was
hardcore.
part of that. I was part of that.
Ex-college athletes, ex-pro athletes, ex-special forces. Like, it was meant to be hardcore, and it was meant to be, we stand for something. This is intentionally hard. And so when I look at this stuff, it does feel like that, and like a boutique concept had a baby. But this does tend to skew, like when I'm looking at your Instagram, the photos tend to skew on the younger side of the range you're giving us, right? So it doesn't seem like you're targeting the 45-year-old mom as much as like a younger crowd, more like first, second job out of college. And are those policies put around, like, is that intentional? Is that you think these type of people are going to be attracted to that, or is this just kind of like how you believe training should be done?
It's interesting. It's a little bit of both. We definitely started that way. Like, we were very specific on what to do. But when you go to scale, right, you do have to enter different markets, and you do have to listen to some of those markets. So what I started to notice, not recently, but about a few years in, we started to notice it wasn't really a body type. It was more like a mentality of a person. And, a lot of times people forget, like, the 45-year-old person, life is also busy with kids. A lot of times when you go to a suburban market, a lot of the dialogue in families is like, okay, let's both get to work. Let's get our 2.5 kids to school, and then let's think about fitness afterwards, right? When you're in a metro market, it's like, let's get my workout in, and then I'll eventually get to my job and eventually happy hour, right? So, but as we grow, and the cool thing that is happening, and I'm kind of excited to talk about this, and you guys probably know this as well. So, like, I was in CrossFit. I was involved in the 125th affiliate owner in the world, if you could imagine that. And we also owned a CrossFit. So we actually saw when it went from that badass young offering and it hit pop culture, and all of a sudden you had you had people coming out of jazzercise underneath barbells, and I was like, hey, I'm not sure if this is what we should be doing, right? It probably can be done well with the right team, but at scale, is this something you should be doing? So we set out to build something in the middle, and it started off very much just naturally because we went into the heart of Charlotte, North Carolina, in the South End neighborhood, and that kind of was the demographic. Now, what's kind of cool is across all of our 35 locations, and we do have suburban markets that do very well, and we have metro markets that do well, but we work with Experian and, the credit company. And they've been following our purchase and behavior for about 30 years and stuff. And so we actually have our psychographics system-wide. We update our membership data every year. And when we extrapolate that data out of the 71 mosaics, that's like how Experian does their thing. There's 71 different archetypes of people in the United States. We fit these 5 primary and secondary categories. And even with our suburban markets, 80% of our membership is between the ages of 25 and 45. And it is more of a type A, go-getter, entrepreneurial, business owner, young professional type group. So yes, we started there, but we're still attracting those people. To come back to the shift I'm excited about, I'm 43 today. Started CrossFitting when I was 25. And what we're now going to see is I'm not, when I turn 50, going back to a treadmill. The first time in the history of, I would say, fitness, you're going to have strength clients aging from 30 to 40 to 50 to 60. And I think it's super exciting because guess what? Health and wellness people, the industry is talking about the value of strength as you age. And it just so happens that's what we do. So I think Even the barbell companies, I think there's going to be a resurgence. Like, I don't know about you guys, but we're seeing a resurgence in like bodybuilding. We're seeing a resurgence in powerlifting. So I think it's a really cool time in the industry because like my parents' generation, I mean, my poor old man, like he spent 30 years running his knees off. He then spent 10 ellipticaling his hips off, and now he's cycling his back off, right? So that his generation is just cardio, 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 cardio. Our generation values strength. And I think we're entering in a new thing we've never seen before that I think it's pretty exciting.
And that's why you position yourself up here as the strength gym. I think is what we have here on the when you search MADabolic Instagram, that's what comes up. Here, I want to pull up a picture of one of them so we can just kind of give the viewer a general idea of what it looks like. So these are smaller than, say, your average CrossFit box, right? Like you're looking usable floor space somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 square feet.
Yeah, we do about 2,000 to 2,500, either a 20-person class or a 25-person class based on the size. Yeah.
And so it looks like up at like smart storage. So pretty lean profile here. You got the kettlebells, the D-balls, all that stuff. And then it looks like it's well lined up like into stations. So we got what it looks like 5 stations of kettlebells, 5 stations of ergs. That's 5 D-balls. And what are these things called? These are like the footwork drill things.
Yeah, so that's a quad that we developed that is one of our foot speed. Like we use the dot drills, we use ladders, and this is a quad. So just a different foot pattern.
And then here are the bags on the far end. So then you can see how it'd be easy enough. Each person has a station, you rotate through. Seems like you can have a pretty efficient class, and it makes it easy to kind of see where everybody is and what they're doing.
Yeah.
So,
and we, those racks that you see, it's pretty cool. So you asked me about the kind of operational capacity there that we've really developed over the last couple of years. So we used to be in that kind of tricky space where it was like 3,000 to 3,500. And we're in a lot of like, hip, younger markets where commercial real estate's expensive. So we worked with a company out of Reno called BeaverFit that become really great friends. And essentially, like my partner and I bought all these weird rogue racks and started like crafting stuff together. Like, what if this was here? And what if we could do a pulley off here and hang a bag from here? And we had them fabricate it. And the goal was, a lot of our spaces, whether it's like the one you just showed was like a bowling alley, and some of them are like a square shape, right? When you start doing the math of losing, let's call it 3 feet times 70 on both sides for all of your hardware, I mean, you look at a 10-year lease, say it's 70 feet long times 3 feet per side times $50 a square foot. I mean, you're at $250,000 pretty quick of extra. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no. So, I wanted to know how much did those custom shelving units unlock for you over the course of a 10-year lease?
Yeah. So we are looking at now saving. I've seen it as low as about 400 square feet of savings and as high as about 750 square feet. And times 750 square feet times $30 or $40 a square foot times a 10-year lease. I mean, it gets up there quick. The
times 50 locations.
Thing, right? And the coolest thing, though, this is what was a byproduct I never anticipated. You can see way more real estate. I had no clue that when we go into a market now, we might have 5 spaces to look at. Now we can look at 15 because we're in a better sweet spot of real estate. So, yeah.
That's the part I thought was remarkable. It wasn't just like, because when we had Stu on, he was like, you have to think about it, price per square foot and how many bodies you can fit in a space. And that's how you should be filling up your spots, right?
Yeah.
And for you, it's like equipment. You're playing around with the Versa Climber, the new climber thing. But it's not just that, it's the racks too, which was pretty remarkable. What are the numbers in terms of like price per square foot for you guys? And then like, what is a spot like worth to you for like a member?
I can attack this. This will make sense, and I'll show you how I attack it. Like our highest price per square foot, we paid $92 a square foot in DC on 14th Street, but I've also seen it as low as $12, $15 a square foot. We're not seeing that much anymore. I will say, like, commercial has just went through the roof. But the way we look at the business from optimizing the space and the capital up front. So when we go into negotiate a lease, number one, we'll come in knowing what we think we can charge for a membership there. And the one good thing we know about our membership is 80% of our membership system-wide is on an unlimited contract. So we can kind of estimate what that breakdown is going to look like. So we kind of put in a little math equation, and we will only take on real estate where our break-even number is at 140 to 160 members, right? So like we won't even allow a franchisee to say like, man, I love this building. I know it's going to take me to a break-even of 190, but this is, and we'll be like, nope, we got to get it down. We got to find the right space to here, because here's our model. If you have 100 members above break-even, you're going to keep 80% of that profit to your bottom line. And that is completely doable. And that's a good return on investment. Like, I'm in our flagship location here. We have 3 in Charlotte, but this location has somewhere between 400 and 425 members with the same kind of margins. But when we go into the franchise sales process, we don't sell this. We sell you being happy at 250 members above that break-even point. Like, here's the thing that no one wants to talk about in franchising, right? If you had 100% of your franchises, 20% are going to overachieve. 20% are going to be your headaches. They're going to underachieve. And that 60% in the middle is what we build everything around. We will never sell you this dream up here. We allow the overachievers to be the overachievers, but our system is built on making that 60% in the middle profitable. So we reverse engineer everything for that 60.
So you're saying you got most locations are going to be break even somewhere around 100 to 150 members. And the sweet spot is 250 above that. So between 350, 400 members is kind of the target per unit.
I mean, that's a killer business. I'm saying that I'm saying at 250 members. So I would say our average is break even 150. And at 250 members, 100, like, do some basic math, right? So if you were charging $200 a month times 100 extra members and you keep 80% of that, like, you're looking at a $16,000 profit that is right to you. That's what we are going to build. Hey, can you get to 400? Sure, but I'm not going to lie to you and sell you that as what we do.
That sounded real juicy. You know, that sounded that sounded hard to do, a 400 person.
Well, and here's the problem. Like, why do you think some of the big players are in trouble right now? They're selling the dream, or they're selling the overachiever, where if you look at basic investments, you would take that, putting it in any investment account. Like, it's a great ROI at 100 members above a break even. So again, just to go back, because I think we're one of the unique concepts that we don't bullshit. Even if, let's say this, say you're 50 members above break even, you're not bleeding, you're still making a little bit of money, right? At 250, you're probably saying, hey, when can I open another unit? Because it's a great return on investment.
And pricing wise, I know you price by market, but based off of what I'm hearing, I'm assuming that's somewhere. And we talked to Evan Lindsay, who runs, I think, 4 franchises. He was saying anywhere in the neighborhood of like 130 to 200. It's typical price point depending on where it is. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. So we try to do A, B, and C market pricing. And there is still an opportunity for A plus. So we're talking about, Manhattan, LA. So that's something you have to figure out once you get there, because even neighborhoods can be different in cities that are that big. But if you look at like A markets, you start to think about the Atlantas, the Dallases. B markets are those strong 18-hour cities like Charlotte, Austin, Nashville. And then when you get down to C markets, it's more like vibrant suburbs. Jupiter, where you guys are, is like a weird hybrid because there's so much money there. We can charge like B market pricing, even though I think it kind of is like a C market offering from like your access to specific clients, but it's got a great price point. But like college towns like Charlottesville, Virginia, Asheville, North Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, like those are very strong C markets. So that would be more of that like 140. And then you could get to in Atlanta, the $200 a month. But then I think in DC, we're close to 230. We're going to open in Santa Clara later this year, and it'll be like in the 240s, 250s. So what we don't do is go in and make a statement outside of what that neighborhood pays for fitness. You know, one of the mistakes, like when Barry's came to Charlotte, they came with New York prices, and Charlotte's like, no offense, you're not that cool, and I'm not paying just to be on Instagram at Barry's. Like they didn't launch very well, and they had to come down very close to our pricing within a year to survive. So we look at what are the strongest competitors, you know, what is the premier products that are charging what, and then we base everything off of our unlimited contract, because we know that's where the bulk of the membership will eventually be.
Who do you guys look for? Because I know you say you're not selling the pie in the sky dream. Who do you guys look for when it comes to a franchisee owner? Are you looking for people who have experience in the industry, or just investors, or that's my first question. And then my second question is there any kind of commonality or thing that you see that the overachievers have in common or are doing differently than some of the other ones?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when me and my partner started, we focused on owner operator just because it's what we knew. But that, you know, a lot of those ideal owner operators that are, say, 30 years old wanting to do this, not a lot of them aren't well capitalized. So like, it's not a real growth strategy to just go after young 30-year-old underfunded young 30-year-olds into our.
Didn't you hear him?
Now,
he said he's got a private equity partner. You know what that private equity partner does? Calls his private equity buddies and say, hey, you got to open up 50 MADabolics. That's what they're doing in there.
Not quite. Now so that's like the next level of scale where you see bigger firms come in and scoop up huge amounts of units. We're not there yet. We are seeing a combination of owner operators that maybe had a good liquidity event at maybe an old job and love fitness. Every once in a while, you have family money that can support a passion of a young entrepreneur. SBA is very common for us using SBA to fund these. And now going to scale, we do have investors that are looking for multi-unit deals, passive income. So you kind of have to like approach everything a little bit different. This is my honest opinion. And this isn't just us, and people need to start talking about this. A shitty operator can kill any system. So there's no such thing as a turnkey system that you don't throw a MADabolic on a wall and all of a sudden people start sprinting towards your doors. We haven't even earned that right yet. I mean, an F45 is a noun. It's a living, breathing thing that if you drop, the world knows what that is at this point. They've at least earned some of that right. We're not there. So we have to we got two things to bet on. We could bet on a person or we can bet on a market, right? So if you're in a vibrant young market like a Charlotte, you know, you have a better chance of teaching an operator how to become this operator if they don't have the experience in the industry. And then every once in a while, you have an industry stud that's in a sleepy market in the suburbs, but they are Mr. and Mrs. of that neighborhood. They know everybody, and the rent is dirt cheap. So once in a while, we'll bet on a human over a market. But what you can't do, in my opinion, what the hardest thing to do is when you take someone like an absentee investor with money and put them in a sleepy market. That's a bad recipe. And if we allow something like that very early on in the process, we have to be very blunt with, you will not be the face. You will not be the operator. We're going to hire early. You're going to be the money behind the team, but we have to build a team there.
And are you facilitating that? Because everyone we talk to doing multi-location, like that is the key, is finding that right operator. Like how do you help in that process?
So as much as you can, because franchising is weird, right? You can't hire for someone. You don't want to expose yourself in that way. Also, too, once you award someone a franchise, I could tell you, I think this is a bad hire, and they could say, sorry, I'm hiring them. Right. So it's franchising a lot tougher than people think, right? There's a reason why, like, think of a good like corporate portfolio, like a Solid Core, the Pilates business. So they do everything, and it's their team. And when they open a location, they send their A-star team and they do it right. Like franchising, you provide best practices, you provide a playbook, and you do as much as you can. But a lot of times you're surprised when adversity hits, because there's a lot of people that can look great on paper. They can be well-funded. They can say all the right things. You can love them as a human being, and then boom, adversity hits and you actually see what that could look like. So it's not simple. And I hate this idea that some companies that are much bigger and smarter than us are saying that there's this turnkey model that you can put anybody in there and it just works. Like this, no offense, this isn't Subway. We're actually in the hospitality business. We just happen to be doing fitness. And, think about some of your best experiences at restaurants. Like, was it really the food you ate, or was it the experience that got you to the table? Was it the waiter? Was it the music in the background? Was it like eventually eat some steak, right? But it's that whole process to get you to the steak that makes a hospitality business work. And I started this conversation saying we're in pop culture fitness, and that should be known. Experience, I wish it wasn't, but experience is just as important as the actual stimulus of the workout. It really is.
In a lot of ways, it's more important.
I agree.
I think that's totally true. There was this restaurant when I lived in Harlem. It was an Indian restaurant that I would go to every week with my wife. It was like a 3.5 on Yelp, like a very not good, or a very middle of the road ratings. But like the guy like knew us and like made us feel like royalty in this like hole in the wall restaurant, brought us free food all the time. And so like, it was the best. I thought it was the best place in New York, even though it's like very 3.5 star food. It was just the best place. So I think the hospitality point is well taken.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you guys have about 35 of these open now. It sounds like you got another 15 or so in the pipe. What's kind of the next milestone, right? Because like you mentioned, there are different phases. In the beginning, you're just scratching and clawing, trying to get anybody to open one of these. Then you get like a little more sophisticated. Then you finally get to the PE guys who are buying big chunks. Like how do those stages work, and what stage are you moving into now? Like what's the next milestone for you?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So we have 35 open a day. We'll probably open another 10 this year. And without selling anymore, we have about 15 pegged for 2025. So like the way I'm looking at it is Q1 of 2025, we'll probably be at that 50 mark, which that's when you start having some bigger conversations. And that's honestly, by the time we get there, right, we have 60 signed in the pipeline, maybe a little bit more than that. We'll probably have 100 signed. So let's just for numbers, let's say 50 open, 100 in the pipeline under contract. That next jump does require a bigger team. We know that, right? And we're not out shopping by any means at this point, but we are in conversations to understand what that next level of scale looks like. Is that another equity partner? Is that a new partnership? I don't know. I really don't know. So when we started this, when we partnered with Z Growth, the private equity arm, and you know what, I'd like to give them a shout out, because they gave us a very different look than other private equity firms. So, we were looked at by a couple places, and essentially at the end of it, it was like, here's our offer, founders, we'll take it from here. And when Z Growth approached us, they said, listen, we're kind of impressed what two guys have done.
They're like, you two, you did this? You sure?
Yeah. They said, like, it's weird because all of your units are happy and profitable, which is weird in a young concept. And they said, listen, like, we want to help you do more of that. And we're really good at this franchising side of things. So why don't we recalibrate and form an idea together? And our original idea was, let's target the top 50 markets in the United States. And depending on density, let's put 1 to 5 units in these markets. And that should give us an opportunity to be at 150 to 200 units. And it's kind of funny, those numbers I just shared, we're kind of like right there. The other milestone we hit that was really interesting in franchising is we estimated that we'd have to have 50 units open for our royalty structure to pay for the corporate structure. So like early on in a franchise business, you really rely on franchise sales to support what you're doing, right? And that's why you see like companies just blasting out crazy franchise sales, because it's a get rich slow scheme, right? It takes a long time for royalties to pay the bills. So we thought it was going to take us to hit that milestone at about 50 units open. And we managed to do it this year at about 31 open. So like, we really like our balance sheet. We don't need money, but whatever happens next does need operations. It's more manpower. Again, I'm trying to think of the word not to use. We're not shopping, but we're trying to understand what 2025 and 2026 could look like, because it's going to look different than today.
So all the PE people listening to Gym World, hit up Brandon. He's shopping. He's exploring, maybe take him to that next phase. To your point, we have this local pizza spot by our house, their franchise concept, and you're not supposed to dox them, dude. I'm going to talk shit about it right now. So
sorry. I wanted to know what you were talking about. Keep going. They keep having what's his name from Barstool Sports? He's like on all the ads. It's like he loves his pizza.
Bleep out the name, Imran. But yeah, you go and grab a box at the place, and on the fucking box, in 4 different places on the box, it says like open a franchise, and it's like, let me try the pizza first. You first thing on the website, open a franchise, like the call to action. Just like, God damn, they're definitely bleeding cash right now, and someone's tapping on their shoulder, being like, you got to get some of these things open.
I mean, have you ever been to 9 Round by any chance?
No, I haven't been to one in real life.
We've worked with some 9 rounds, but yeah.
So like when you walk in, I think it's a requirement to have that own a franchise like hit you right in the face as you kind of walk into the studio, which I don't know. I mean, I get it, but it kind of, I don't know, a little cheesy.
When it's just like right there, it's just the first thing you see.
Yeah.
Right under. Yeah. So.
It's like almost it's bigger than the try an actual class button.
Exactly. So,
but hey, I will say I'd be okay having a 9 round problem right now. So let's give them some props, right? So I think they're okay.
Yeah, but if I'm opening a location, I'm paying into a marketing fund, right? Because the way this works, they're taking some 2 to 4% of revenue. Typically, is that the kind of the?
No, it'd be a lot higher than that because we're pretty lean at between 5 and 6%. You can get some companies up to like 8, 9. So yeah, we hover
just for marketing or the full franchise fee.
Oh shit, you said marketing. So no, our royalty structure is between 5 and 6, depending on like what year your FDD is, and then our marketing fund is 1 to 1.5%, I believe. It's weird. I'm getting my numbers mixed up because we have to go through our FDD filing like right now. So just no one quote me on this. I know we're somewhere around that range right now. We're working through it right now. It's a huge pain in the ass every year redoing these filings, but we're going through it right now.
Yeah. So Jim Owens, just so you understand, typically they'll take a % of revenue as your franchise fee, and then they'll take either a flat fee for some concepts. Others will do actual like percentages for marketing. And that's just a slush fund doing the kind of brand work that Brandon was talking about earlier. But I would get kind of pissed off if I was paying 1 to 2% and that went to putting own a franchise 5 times on the pizza box. This is the point I'm trying to make.
Fair point. Yeah, fair point.
But I understand. I understand that, everyone's got to get paid in these things. So what are some of the concepts that you're looking up to that you think are doing a good job? Preferably fitness, but if you got other other concepts that you're drawing inspiration from. Would love to hear them.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Solid Core. I mentioned them earlier. I just think they seem to do everything right. I know they're a corporately owned structure, but I'm a huge fan of their branding. I'm a huge fan of their messaging. I like the simplicity of what they do. Like the concepts I like are people that do their one thing really well. The kiss of death for me is when you start to see a cycling concept adding in weights, or I mean, one of the biggest examples, and I'm not punching down, but like Orange Theory trying to add in strength this year when they're a cardio concept, like it's just not going to end well. Like it's just not what they do well. So I like people that niche and celebrate their market. You know, people always laugh when I say this, but one of my favorite brands that I haven't paid attention to in the last couple of years, but when they launched, was Pure Barre. I mean, when have you ever seen a Pure Barre ad that says we need more men in this class? Nope.
Looking for 10 local men.
Yeah, like
looking to want to get better on the bar.
I mean, they know their consumer. They cater to them, and they didn't apologize for being who they are. So I know it has nothing to do with strength and conditioning, but like I love I guess Solid Core actually does it. That workout will smoke you. It's brutal. But I love Solid Core. I love Pure Barre. I'm loving what is happening overseas. Some of the big box concepts overseas are beautiful. They're just doing everything right. I don't know how they're paying for it, but the memberships are affordable. The amenities are amazing. The aesthetics are gorgeous. So I feel like we're going to see the next wave. Like you've seen Equinox try it, Lifetime's doing a version of it. But I think that kind of hybrid of, it's not the huge box gym, but it's a big enough with the cool amenities and the slick branding. You know, the weirdest thing, guys, I seem to draw inspiration from things like hotels I stay at when traveling or restaurants. It's very rarely in the fitness space where I get a new idea. I don't know if this is arrogant. There's no one in our space that makes me nervous right now from a concept. I mean, that's part of my job, is to make sure I'm keeping an eye on who could be coming. So there's nothing that I'm like, shit, we better keep an eye on these people. But guess what? It's not that simple, right? Because we talked about hospitality, and some of these concepts, I may not like the workout. They have their lobby game down. Their bathrooms are sick. And that speaks to a certain consumer. So I know I just rambled there, but hopefully that gives you kind of some context.
No, I think that's great advice. Like we did that. John's dad's involved with Marriott. So at one point he took all the managers and the owners to go spend the day over there. And we got a tour of the facility and how they do their morning meetings, their morning huddles, how we went through one of the rooms and like, here's the SOP checklist of like how a room needs to get turned over. And I think one of the biggest lessons was like, maybe John knows the exact number. They made like $250,000 off of just the candy bars at the front desk, you know?
Really?
And like, that was the aha moment, was like, oh, we should never let our protein bars we should never be missing an order, right? We should always have that stuff stocked, because if not, we're leaving money on the table there. So yeah, you got to explore these other industries to get some of these ideas. And I think it can go a long way.
We were so dumb. Like we were in New York City, and it's like, you know, how many drop-ins did you get at Bowery? Maybe 5 to 10 a week?
A bunch, a whole lot.
And there would be like months where we just wouldn't have like our core t-shirt in a size, because like, oh, like the order, like we were too cheap to like air it instead of drive it, you know? And it's like thousands of dollars in t-shirt revenue just because we were dumb. The upside was we were in New York. And to your point, like it's a common theme with a lot of successful gym owners we speak with, is that they draw inspiration from restaurants and hotels. And the reason for that is like gymming is awful. Like it's a hard ass business to succeed in. But I think restaurants and hotels are probably two of like the only harder ones because it's hospitality like literally 24/7 and you don't have a relationship with most of your clients. It's like all drop-ins every day, all day. So they'll go in and if anything is off that day, they have no problem like ripping your ass a 1-star review because they're never going to go back there. They're never going to see you again. Where like it's a lot more difficult to get a 1-star review in a coaching gym because they have to come back and look at your fucking face.
That's right.
And even if they cancel, like you have their address, like you know where they live, you know where their kids go to school. Like you got to be careful. Like we got a 1-star review once, and Mateo literally broke into the guy's apartment complex to leave. He broke into the guy and lit on fire. No, he left them. He left them some flowers.
I left flowers, a card, and the refund that for whatever reason the processor wouldn't refund. I slipped it under the door. And to John's point, from that Marriott tour, I remember going through the kitchen, being like, the ratings of the kitchen were just like really, really low. It's like it's okay if it's like a 3 out of 10. We're in a good spot because you're only getting bad reviews. You're never getting good reviews for the food. So anyway, yes, we were silly back then.
Well, this is crazy because it just happened. But I was in Atlanta 2 weeks ago with a couple guys. We were going to see some music, and I went and saw Interpool play at a really small venue. So super excited to see them live. It was only the second time I had seen them. But one of the things I noticed was like how dialed in their brand was. So like I'm standing here like watching them play, and I'm noticing like their merch stand over there and everything is black with red accents. I'm looking at the guys in their black suits with the red lights like hitting them on stage. I'm like, fuck, Interpool is a brand on top of being a band. I'm like, this is genius. Like every single thing they are doing is catering to their look, their brand, their base. And like, it's just the weird places that you find inspiration. I loved it.
Iron Maiden's another one, like Eddie, like they literally have a mascot, and like so much of their like brand is just around him, and like getting him on t-shirts, getting him in different areas. And then when you go see a show, there's just like a giant animatronic version of him just like breathing fire on stage. So yeah, that's how I think they make a lot of that's how they've been able to last so long. It's like, Eddie versus like the other band members.
Absolutely.
Well, your turnstile thing, you showed up in a shark costume, right? They had a mascot as well.
Oh, that was these guys, Drain. But yeah, but yes, again, it's surf themed, and yeah, people bring pool noodles to fight in the mosh pit. People get in shark gear, like me, and yeah, it's great.
Love it.
Well, Brandon, we're running towards the end of the hour. We don't want to take up too much of your time. We know you got a hot date with Stu Brower. We just want to remind you that marketing is how you get in the door. Branding is how you close the deal. But for those that aren't going to be privy to the date, how do people find out more about you and MADabolic?
I've over the last couple of years, I've gotten pretty active on LinkedIn, and you can find me there pretty easily. I try to engage as much as I can. It's the easiest way to reach me. So I would say MADabolic's easy, right? Because we own all the handles, www.madabolic.com, @MADabolic on all social channels. But I love talking to people like yourself. I love grinders that, I'm happy to speak to people. So feel free to DM me on LinkedIn at any point you want.
That's how you know this guy's exploring the next level of private equity. When we're looking at our competitors, I look at how active the CEO is on LinkedIn. And I'm like, that's an indication, heavy signal that they're looking to sell or raise money. So not that you're looking to sell or raise money, but that's where those guys hang out. So Brandon, this has been awesome. We appreciate it. And Gym World, I hope you appreciated it, because it's hard to get Brandon on the pod. This is a big, important guy, big guy. And so
I gotta keep you guys around. My ego is feeling good right now as I leave for the weekend. This is feeling good. Yeah.
big guy knows where babies come from, knows how to make it in fitness. And so the show's not free. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell Teo the best boating spots in Tequesta because he's a man of the sandbar now. And as always, we love you and you're enough. And we will catch you next week. Goodbye.